Let's speak a little philosophy, human psychology. You see, people, we all think differently, and this is where it may be perceived that so-called problems or issues arise, when in actual fact there are no problems and no issues, because there is no separate individuality. You see, all of our issues come about because we think we are an I, we are an individual, and I'm a me and you are you, and you know, I have my issues and you have your issues, when in actual fact nobody has any issues per se of their own, because the issues pertain to consciousness en masse. The issues pertain to the cosmos. We're all made of the same stuff. We all share this consciousness, broadly speaking. And so nothing can ever derive out of consciousness. What is consciousness? We don't know what consciousness is, but lots of scientists speculate that the cosmos is conscious. Because the cosmos is God, and God must be conscious, and so therefore it would stand to reason that we're all in God's consciousness, so therefore we're being imagined or dreamed. And so if you as so-called individual people are considering that, oh, this has happened to me and it's not happened to you, it's happened to us. Everything happens to us because it is us. It's like saying that when a wave washes over any particular beach, one grain of sand is like, oh, why did I get wet? I'm feeling cold now. You know, everybody's under the same wave, everybody's under the same ocean. Everybody is going to be experiencing the same sort of things, only, you know, because we've got individuated specks of consciousness, then it's deemed to be personal to us when it's not personal. A grain of sand isn't a personal thing on the beach. It's the beach at the end of the day. If you look at an intranet where you've got 1,000 computers with one server, each computer could deem that you know, it's got things in its brain and it knows how to do this and knows how to do that, and silly people may think that they're going to steal this computer and run out the office with it, and then they're going to have all the information, only to get home to look on the computer because it isn't connected to the server, there's nothing on it. You see, that's what's happening with the human being. But you know, we're all different. We all have varying degrees of consciousness, intelligence, and experience, and all that different sort of thing. So we all look at the world vastly different. In my book, I describe a scenario of like a dome, being inside a dome of mirrors, and everywhere you look, you see, you know, just a myriad of reflections of yourself within this dome. That's what we are. Everywhere we look, we're seeing a reflection of ourselves. What is ourselves? Consciousness, people. Only consciousness. Forget the body. Forget the ego. Forget that you think that you live in anything like that. There's nothing going on, really, per se, out of consciousness. Consciousness is perceiving everything. Out of consciousness creates everything. In the beginning was the Word. Now then, when you look at in the beginning was the Word, well, you know, for simple terms, okay, in the beginning was the Word, but just to go back, well, what necessitates a word? Well, consciousness, intelligence. You've got to have an intelligence behind the word, and if you've got something which is intelligent, then it's either a very sophisticated computer, and in which case it must have been created by a higher intelligence. And so ultimately we're going to go back to consciousness. Consciousness is this indefinable thing that gives rise to everything, because if we take consciousness away and we become unconscious, then what is there? What is there? And you know, when we dream, you know, it has been said in the past that when we are unconscious, we dream. We're never unconscious. Consciousness never dies. That's the thing, people. And so it's just the ego that doesn't have a connection with consciousness. Because if you think that when we go to sleep that the body, the brain, the intelligence becomes unconscious, then what's running the body? the body continues to run exactly the same as it does when the ego comes back online. So therefore, the ego isn't a necessary requirement for the body, is it? We can be actually brain dead and the body can still continue to function. So the ego is just the illusory operating system that enables us to pretend that we're in a dream of being a real boy or girl. Now, it doesn't matter what I say. I can say a whole billion things, and people, I don't believe this, I don't believe that, you know, I think this and I think that, and I've had this experience and I've had that experience. Yes, we're all under the misconception of being individuated, but if we look at it globally, and you know, just as a simple illustration, people, all you need to do is just pretend that you're on Cassini space module flying past Jupiter. This space module, one of them was sent out 1973. There's a couple of them that were sent out, and when one of these modules was flying past Jupiter, it sent a photo back to Earth, and it was called the small blue dot, or the tiny blue dot. And Carl Sagan was the astronomer, astrologer, astrophysicist, astrocosmologist, whatever, at the time. And he was, you know, very, very metaphysical, you know. And Carl Sagan smoked weed almost every day of his life. He was a very insightful, thoughtful person, and doubtless he did psychedelics as well. But this picture of the small blue dot was this tiny, tiny, tiny grain of sand in the cosmos. Well, if you only have the perception to be able to picture that in your mind's eye, or look at it on the internet, then you can go, oh my God, all of us individuated shards of consciousness are on that small blue dot. Wouldn't you stand to reason that that blue dot is an entity unto itself? Gaia, Mother Earth. Mother Earth has consciousness pertaining to itself, pertaining to all of its living creatures, or everything that it's created. It's one, it's the world. This is why we, you know, can read things about Gaia being a conscious entity, because it is, people. And it's like, you know, ants. If an ant ever looked up, like in the movie Ants, oh, what the fuck's going on here? You know, like they've got human consciousness, then they start to think in an individuated way. But the fact of it is, it doesn't appear that ants do think in individuated ways. They think in a hive mind, in a colonial mind. And so we have a colonial mind, but we've got this extra piece of software, which is probably a mutation, because it doesn't appear to value us in any shape or form, because all it does is it keeps us torn apart, and it you know, makes us kill each other, hate each other, envy each other, and this, that and the other. You see, if our consciousness ever came together in a unity and we acted like a colony or a hive, then can you imagine how we would get along exponentially? We would be absolutely thriving, because everything every single person did would be for the community, the community, the community, instead of the self, the self, the self. You see, that's the ego. That's the poison of the human being, the ego. And whenever Buddhists or spiritualists speak about entering samadhi, which is the state of bliss. You can't enter into nirvana whilst you're still alive. That's when you go back to source. That's nirvana. That's the ultimate. But we can experience something like that with samadhi, when the ego goes offline and we realise that we are, you know, conscious entity, and everything is for us, and it's absolutely wonderful, it's joyous, because there isn't the trappings of this silly individuated thing where we're afraid of everything and we're insecure because we think we're going to die and this, that and the other. When the ego goes offline, death isn't a consideration. It's only the ego that brings about the notion and fallacy of death, people. This is why we have to have the greatest of states of awareness. Many people, they will never have this level of awareness. And, you know, people are saying to me now, one comment in the video when I'm speaking about many souls, this person said, fuck, I can't even deal with one soul. It must be horrific. They must be arguing with each other all the time. Yes, they are. You know, that's the nature of appearing to be separate. you see, not only do we appear to be separate from each other as human beings, but our consciousness will separate into, you know, angels and demons and, you know, souls and spirits and all that sort of thing. Everything is a fractal, people. Everything's fractalized, and it will go on and on and on and on and on forever, endlessly. And there's no truth. There's no definitive truth about anything. There is only ever the illusion or delusion of any truth. And how do we arrive or derive truth? Well, we settle at something. That's what we do. Or if we're a scientist, we keep looking for more and more and more, and then we go, oh, that's true. And then, you know, a week later, they'll discover something else which will prove that this wasn't necessarily true. Oh, there's something else that's true now. Oh, well, what's going to be true after that? What's going to be true after that? What's going to be true after that? It's just an endless carrot and stick. Or stick and fucking carrot or whatever. That's all it is. It's the delusion from beginning to end, people. Consciousness is just a dreamer. It's just dreaming. And, you know, I've laboured this for 15 years in my videos. And today, long-term viewers, they still don't get it. They've got their ideas and their this and that. They don't realise that they're stuck in a groove because they don't know they're in a lower state of consciousness. Because if they were in a higher state of consciousness, then, to be fair, more people would be thinking like me. Because I'm not alone in this. You know, there's been other very, you know, renowned thinkers which think so-called out of the box. Their consciousness is more expansive, and all other, you know, facets of other human consciousness seems to be within that, because we can look in to see where the problems and the issues are, like a mechanic looking at an engine, you see, but like a piston can't see, you know, what the problem is in relation to the drive shaft. You know, because it's not related in any conscious way. But, you know, when you have an awareness and a consciousness of all those components, then you go, oh, this is this and that's that, and, you know how it works. Well, they're the same when your consciousness expands through whatever means. I don't know how much of my consciousness is natural, how much of it pertains to the copious amounts of entheogens I've taken, or life experience, or my incessant desire to gain knowledge. All these things I shouldn't wonder. But, you know, when you've had, you know, a vast amount of earth experience, and when you've read thousands of books, and when you've studied incessantly for many years, and when you've done all these things, you've done the meditation, you've done the hypnosis course, you've done the psychology courses, you've done all these, and you've got lots of arrows to your quiver, then of course you see a bigger picture, don't you? And that just stands to reason. That's why when we've got people like, let's just say Yuval Noah Harari. Now, when you listen to where he came from, he is a historian. And to become an historian, apparently, it necessitates at least 10 years of study at university. And so he studied what is it to be a historian, because he says, look, to be an historian, it isn't just reading history. You've got to learn languages. You have to have a rational application of mind. You have to have a very philosophical mind. You've got to be able to decipher what is true and what is not true. Every time you read a bit of information, you can't just take that as gospel. You've got to question, were these people lying? Were they deluded? Was somebody holding the gun at their head for them to write this? All of these possibilities we have to consider, and then you have to look further and further and further and further, and you have to try to find a general consensus. Well, what I've done with my research is I've found a general consensus at the very fundamental beginnings of human consciousness, and that's our mythology, people. The very fundamental beginning of the essence of what we are is written in our mythology. And when you look at mythologies from all over the world, they have a fundamental underlying simile, which is that, you know, there was a god, and you know, he was self-manifest, and out of his thoughts he manifests this, and then this turned out to be evil, so then he had to manifest something to counter the evil, and all this sort of stuff. You know, why Do we create all that stuff? Because that's what we are as conscious beings, as human beings. We're the cosmos. We're 50% evil, we're 50% good, love, or whatever. You know, the cosmos is a construct of polarities. It cannot be any other way. You cannot have anything which is only one thing, because if you've got one thing, then it doesn't exist, because there's nothing to compare it against. So it couldn't exist, could it? You can't just say that you've got one thing. Well, what is that one thing? Oh, well, that one thing's one thing. Well, is there any other one thing? Is there any other thing else? No, this is just one thing. Well, where do you get this one from? What does one mean? Oh, it means one. Well, I mean, if you're going to be speaking about one, therefore there must have been two at some stage, because you would have need two as a comparison to say one. So you can't even say one thing, can you? You can't say anything, people. Fundamentally, you know, what I've discovered, and I've experienced this, I've experienced the deep black stillness of nothingness, where there is just awareness. And it's a peculiar thing, because this awareness, right, its awareness is vast, and it seems to be filled with absolutely everything conceivable. And yet when you are this awareness, there is nothing to perceive about it, just an awareness of a vast awareness. But out of this awareness comes consciousness. Out of consciousness is born the cosmos, and, you know, human beings and all things into it, because consciousness is God. Without consciousness there would be nothing else, because in the awareness there's nothing except awareness, and it's just isness, and it's, you know, it's dark, there's nothing there, because there's no light, there's no information, there's no spark of anything, you know. And this is what it says in mythology. It always starts off in the darkness, and then there was a light, there was a spark, there was a flash, you know, the Big Bang. You know, we're doing nothing more in modern times, people, than just fucking rewriting ancient mythology. Everything came out of nothing in a Big Bang, in a big flash. Oh, goodness me. It's so pathetic, it's ridiculous. Pathetic human beings clutching at straws. But the fact is, you see, if we don't do this, then we cannot live this man. You know, when you have dreadlocks, the scalp needs massaging, because we don't comb our hair. And so under normal circumstances, people would be combing their hair, massaging their scalp, right? But because we don't comb our hair, the scalp then craves to be touched. It craves to be stimulated, because the scalp needs stimulating to grow, you know, for the hair. And so I have to do this for, you know, about 20 minutes every day. I have to really massage the skull until it's completely satiated. It's not like I've got itchy head because I've got dirty hair, because I wash my hair the same as everybody else, people. You know, it's all washed, it's conditioned, and, you know, I spend, you know, good money on the things I use for the hair to keep it moist and to keep it in good condition and all the rest of it. Anyway, so when some of you see me doing this, it's just one of those things where, oh, it just feels so good. You know, when I was younger, my old man used to have us kids massage his head. And he said that, you know, because he was balding a little bit, that it stimulates the growth of the hair, and doubtless that does. But it also is very soothing. And whenever I've been travelling around Malaysia, places like that, I would often say to these women giving massages, I don't want a body massage today, I want a head massage. And, you know, the Indians, I think they're the only ones really that make a big deal about doing head massages. And I was considering that if I set up a business with a load of like barbers chairs in some sort of salon, and you just give people head massages, fuck, that would take off in a big fucking way, because people can just go in their lunch break, sit there and just go into heaven and have their head massaged, you know, by delicate little female hands, you know, with nails. It's very stimulating to the male. I don't know whether female would like more stronger macho hands, you know, because it is a sexual experience, it's a sensual experience. Anyway, I'm digressing. So everything pertains to consciousness, and so you know what I'm always saying. I'm saying, look, people, time and time and time and time and time again, don't tell me what you think. Don't tell me what you believe. That isn't what philosophers do. That isn't what thinkers do. That's what fools do. In all due respect, fools will tell you what they think, because then if you ask them, why do you think that? Oh, I don't know. No, you don't know. So why are you saying you think? You're not thinking anything. You're just regurgitating automated shit that's been pervasive. It's all around you, and you've downloaded it, and then you're just spilling it out. That's what drones do, people. Intelligent people don't do that. They don't say we believe, and we don't say I think. I mean, there's going to be times when we're going to be saying this because we're so used to saying it and expressing ourselves. But at the end of the day, you know, what we really have to do is we have to say, well, my personal experience is this, and that's the only thing I can go on. I've read so much about this, and that. You know, a billion books all over the fucking world, but I don't know any of it to be true. The only thing I can speculate, even marginally, what is true is what my subjective experience is showing me. But what I've discovered over the years is that even my subjective experience is very, very fallacious and cannot be depended upon. This is why René Descartes, the philosopher, the French philosopher of the 1600s, you know, he decided that he's going to see what the fuck exists in this environment, because it was doing his fucking head in, because everything he looked at just seemed to slip through his fingers like a fistful of dry sand. There was nothing of any substance. And what he discovered after investigating this long and hard, that the only thing that he could say was in existence was there was something which was thinking. I think, therefore I am. Cogito ergo sum is the Latin terminology, which is now famous. But then you see the Hindus or the Buddhists, they went a step further, and they went, no, Descartes had it wrong, because it isn't when you think, because thinking is illusory. You're thinking illusory thoughts about things being real and your body and your mind. But when you don't think, that's when you go into this isness. That's when you go into pure state of awareness. That's why they knew what the real state of the human being is. And unless you've been there, people, you will never ever grasp this. I personally have been there. I've been into this pure blackness, which is pure awareness, and I write about it in my book. I've only been there once. I've only ever been into that pure, deep isness on one occasion, and that was when I was meditating for 3 hours, absolutely solid, and I was lying down with earplugs in and blindfold on, and I was all comfortable, and you lose all notion of the mind and the body and of consciousness and everything, and your mind just sets aside, and then your pure essence of isness, which is cosmic awareness, that's what you are, people. And then when the pure awareness somehow has a thought, then consciousness comes online, and then things are created, things are manifest. And this is then what relates to the double slit experiment. The double slit experiment says that, look, the cosmos is probability. There is nothing material about it, there's nothing definitive about it at all. It's all probability until something is observing it. Some conscious being, entity or device is observing it. Then the cosmos goes, well, we're being observed now, I suppose we best act like we are something. It's a very, very, very curious dimension. And, you know, to be quite frank, I think it will remain indecipherable because of its vast genius, forever and ever. But I've experienced a lot of things, and so where I'm coming from, people, I'm coming from my own personal experience. And when quantum physicists have told me about the double slit experiment, and then I have experienced my very own collapsing of the wave function, I go, fuck, that is a fucking big deal. Because now I know on a conscious level that what those physicists have been saying for the past 100 years is true. Consciousness collapses the probability into a seemingly corporeal world. A fictionary world. It's all fiction, people. There is no matter. But consciousness waves its magic wand. And the ego, which is a very, very silly Billy, believes it. But when you are a higher state of conscious being, then you see the ego as just a silly little Billy, which is just the operating system for the fiction of being a human being. And so you then think from a higher state of consciousness, whether it's pure spirit, pure consciousness, whatever it is. You know, there's expanses of consciousness. And for many years now, you know, I always used to say, I want my consciousness to expand. And I used to do meditations where I would envision my consciousness expanding 20% or maybe, you know, 30%. And, you know, I said this, you know, for several years. And then I stopped doing that. And all of a sudden I realised, holy motherfucker, look how my consciousness has expanded so exponentially from when I started out 15 years ago. When I was starting out 15 years ago, my videos were very elementary as far as I'm concerned, but they were much more graspable to the man in the street, and that's why they were much more popular. And I had many more subscribers and people wanting to engage, because the things I was speaking about were like on a shop floor level of spiritual awakening. Now I'm on the fucking ridge tiles and I'm reaching up for the stars, you know. And so there is very, very few people that can comprehend things on that sort of level, because I haven't had the experience, people. You know, I'm always telling you, and the reason why I'm telling you about my experiences, you know, just for instance, just to go to prison. Going to prison is a very, 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 very big deal, because all of the connotations, all of the humanisms which come to play on you when you are incarcerated in such a devilish, restrictive environment, you change and you learn, and you either grow or you wither. I've seen many, many people wither like shrinking violets and cowards, because they never had the constitution to be able to deal with that, and they were always victims. And then you get, you know, someone else. I mean, in both episodes of my incarceration, you know, I just glided through. Absolutely untouchable. I was untouchable. Nobody could ever touch me. Nobody could ever harm me. And no person could ever really affect me, because somehow, some way, I'm protected, and you know, I have a higher state of consciousness, which gives me a greater constitution, you know, to dig in the face of all adversity. Just dig in and just come back to the center and meditate and meditate and meditate and meditate. And then you contemplate and you expel all negative energy, and you rebuke all demons and all the rest of it. It's a very, very powerful experience. And of course, you know, many people have different experiences, but prison for everyone is a powerful experience. You're estranged from your family, your loved ones, and you know, you lose everything that you've ever owned, mostly, unless you're very fortunate. And so there's a whole fucking bunch to it, and if people haven't had that, they've got no idea. And, you know, if you haven't had your life compromised, if you haven't had to fight for your life, you've got no idea. And so this is what creates, you know, it gives rise and birth to new souls. New souls come out of this, people. You know, you become an army. You literally become an army, because there's so many of you that have experienced so many things. And so, with the whole, you know, I believe this and I believe that, and I think this and I think that, my channel is a philosophical, psychological, spiritual channel. And, you know, it's not a wishy-washy, mundane, run-of-the-mill YouTube channel. Where people don't ask you to think. How many other channels do you go on which point blank ask you, tell you, provoke you to think for yourselves and stop with this incessant bullshit? Recognize the bullshit. But then you see, we have to take into consideration that many people, they don't have internal monologue, they don't have internal dialogue, they don't have higher states of consciousness, they're not aware of their soul, let alone their spirit. They're the automaton, and they just can't see because they're in a very small circle of consciousness, whereby some of us, we are in expansive circles which are outside of that. And I'm always using the analogy of throwing a pebble into a pond, and then with all the ripples that go out, they're new and different states of consciousness. And as we become more and more conscious, we pond hop like a frog from lily to lily into another ring, another concentric circle of consciousness. And that's how it is, people. So let me see if there's anything else to say about this. You see, I'm just trying to guide you. I'm trying to guide your consciousness. I'm trying to guide your level of intelligence. And, you know, you're all at different levels. And so some of you will see things a little bit more than others. But even if you are, let's say, of a very similar level of intelligence to me, your experience is very, very different. And if your experience is different, if your experience is much more narrow than mine, then your consciousness is more narrow. You know, for instance, if people haven't actually left their own country, then their consciousness in relation to people of the world and cultures and different environments and you know, feelings and the spirit of a nation, all these different sorts of things, you've got no idea. You know, because you're just not going to get that from watching YouTube, people. And so yeah, I mean, it's difficult for me. It's difficult, and you know, the higher self is desirous to impart all this stuff, but then there's an egoic facet of me, of course there is, which it needs some satiation, it needs some engagement, it needs to have a kind of like a more mundane level of purpose. You see, there's a higher level of purposeness, and it's to, you know, evolve everyone's consciousness, it's to rise everybody up, you know, in the Buddhist tradition, because the Buddhists will say that they keep having to come back with reincarnations unless everybody has woken up, and then nobody has to come back anymore. So even if there's one man that's left sleeping on Earth, nobody can actually go home, you know. And so that's got something to do with what I'm doing here, people. You know, there's such a power and there's such an energy, there's such a driving force behind what I'm doing. I personally, whatever I is, let's just say the ego, Aaron Berry, you know, I don't have any fucking authority over that. It just fucking happens. And this morning I'm reading and I'm like, oh, sometimes I can read for an hour, maybe, you know, two. Sometimes I can read for 10 minutes and then all of a sudden I've got a fucking video and I've just got to say, I'm going to turn the computer on or the fucking camera on and I'm just talking for another hour. And then when that's been uploaded, then my mind will be free again and then I can concentrate on reading, I can meditate and I can go about my other things. But you know, increasingly you see I'm so prolific at making videos because there's something which is using me. It's like, you've still got the energy to do it, you know, you just do one more hour, just do another video, you know. And it's very much like, if you've ever listened to these channeling people, some of you will be familiar with Bashar. It is very much like that, people. It really is very much like that. And then these people, conversations with God, what's his name, Donald Welsh, or something like that, conversations with God. He woke up one morning, there's a voice in his head. And like, who's the fuck's that? Who are you? And then it turns out, oh, it's God. And I wanted him to write some shit down. So he spent fucking years of his life doing that. The Conversations with God, people, very good books. So, you know, all I'm asking is that you try to introspect a little bit more. You try to ask yourself what experiences you've had, instead of just thinking, I think this and I believe that, which is just coming from the surface of the ego. What I'm asking, I'm asking for something which is coming from your soul. I'm asking for something which is coming from your spirit. I'm asking for something which is coming from your vicery, which is coming from your experience, where your vicery is twisted and contorted, and it's been in the deepest of compromise, and you've had all these emotions going and everything. What did you derive from that? What experience? What do you feel as if you know? It's a tall order, I get it, but that's what a part of me is looking for, people. So, I'll be giving you stuff like this. I'll be giving you these downloads which come from the cosmos like that. And then I'll be coming at you from the side, a bit like a boxer. Boxer, he can give you the straight jab. But then, if you're not concentrating too much, after you've blinked, if he's giving me the jab, then he's coming up with an uppercut or something like that. So I'm coming at you from all these directions, aren't I? And I come at you all these directions because some people are susceptible to the jab, others are susceptible to the hook. Horses for courses, isn't it? However, I can reach different people, and when I put up videos, which I think, load of rubbish, that video, then lots of people have an affinity with that. And this is why I always just put the videos up that I make, contrary to what I think about them, because there's something for everyone, and there's always going to be someone out there which appreciates whatever I do. Providence videos, cooking bloke videos, wild food foraging videos, nature walks, meditation videos, psychology, philosophy, spiritualism, all these different sorts of things. So I'm like a dumper truck with all this stuff in the back, and I'm just driving to the nearest fucking town square, and I'm just tipping it off, and I'm just like, have a look through that shit. You might find something interesting,